Good day, viewers. Welcome to a new edition of 30 Minutes, the interactive program of Trust Television. I'm Manir Dan Ali. Our guest today is a young professor of international law at the University of Abuja. I'm talking of Professor Aisha Maikudi, who has some background of being from a family of academics and is an academic herself. Welcome to the program, Professor Aisha Maikudi.
Thank you for having me.
It's not every day we have youngish looking professors on this program, and I wonder, how was your path to professorship?
So I started school quite early because my mom was, she said to me that all her friends had kids at school, and so she also wanted her own at school, you know. So I think she took me to school at the age of 1, even though it was just a prep. So I started school quite early. I finished my primary school at the age of 10, which was when I started secondary school, and that was at Lagos, Queen's College, Yaba, Lagos, and I finished that at the age of 16. In 1999. So from there I proceeded to the UK. I did my A-levels for 2 years at the Cambridge Centre for Sixth Form Studies. Then I went to the University of Reading for my LLM, to the London School of Economics and Political Science for my LLM, which is the Masters. And then I came back home for my law school. So after doing my law school, I had to do Bar Part 1 and then Bar Part 2. After doing that, I went for the NYSC. And then I started lecturing. So
lecturing is your first love, or how did it happen?
So when I was in school and, you know, wisdom was still being sought, lecturing wasn't anything that I thought I would do, because when you're a student, all you want to do is finish school. And I remember thinking, so I'm going to finish school and then I'll still continue, you know, teaching. I'm still within the same school system. Won't this ever end? But my mom was a teacher, and so that influenced it a bit as well.
And was it at the beginning at the University of Abuja, or did you start at another university?
No, I started at the University of Abuja. So after doing my NYSC at the NNPC, my mom was doing her PhD then. And so I used to follow her to the university, sometimes for her defense and other stuff. And they had an advert then for employment. And her supervisor, one of her supervisors was Professor who was the Vice Chancellor then. So I had some interactions with him, and he was like, oh, why don't you try applying? I think, you know, you may be a good fit here. So I said, okay, I'll try. I did the application process, and I was called for an interview. And I was interviewed by the HOD then, Professor Waziri.
That's the head of department of legal.
So we had 2 departments then. We have 4 now, but that's the head of the Department of Private and Islamic Law.
Right. All of which come under the Faculty of Law.
Yes,
including
that's right.
Your own area of specialization. So
my area of specialization, I remember even when I went to the interview, I was saying, oh, but you know, my master's, I did a specialized master's in public international law because that's what my area of interest is. And he said to me that, oh, don't worry about that. There's no problem with that. Once you're in the faculty, we always give you what you're interested in to teach. So there's no issue with that. So in that, as of then, we had so many people whose area of interest wasn't necessarily the department they were put in, but you always had the option to teach what you were interested in. And so because we had only two departments then, but now that we have 4, everyone is under his own area of specialization. So for example, I'm now under the Department of Jurisprudence and International Law.
But you also teach company law.
Exactly.
Why is that so? Is it because it's one of the hot areas?
You know, when you're in school, your teachers actually influence you a lot. And when I was at university, company law was something everyone always said is so difficult and they don't like. It's, you know, because it has so many sections and it's so cumbersome, it's really bulky. And they're all technical things like taxation law. So, but my teacher made it very interesting, and so I enjoyed it. And I always like a challenge. So if I find something difficult, then I try to make sure I know what it's about so that I can answer a question on it. So that was what, piped my interest in company law. And then when I was doing my master's, and no, even then at the undergraduate level,
Which is at the University of Reading.
Yes, I had an interest in taking international law, which wasn't a core subject then, it wasn't compulsory, so I took that and it was very interesting. My teacher made it very, very interesting, so I got an interest in that. And that was why I specialized in international law, but I still enjoyed company law very, very much.
So of the two, which one is your real maybe love? I mean, is it international law or is it company law that you've been doing as well? Difficult one.
Yes, it's difficult because you see, right from the beginning, I took international law because also we had people coming from the United Nations. There was a time they came into our school and they did, like a talk. And so it got me interested in the United Nations. I thought, oh, I would want to work here one day. And to work there, an advantage is to have a specialized master's in international law. Right. So I did that, but company law has always been very interesting to me. So
probably because that is where a lot of money is as well.
No, it wasn't about the money. If it's about the money, you don't go into teaching at all. You practice.
No, I mean, when you practice, because the corporate lawyers are usually charging very hefty fees.
Do they? I don't practice. But I think you make more money from election cases. Election petition cases. But so, international law is something I've always been interested in, and that's why what I did was I floated an international law course, which is called United Nations Law. So it talks about the United Nations, the organization, its history, its institutions. It talks about what they've done, their resolutions, how they've been able to keep peace and conflict, just everything to do with that, really. So, but company law is what I teach my undergraduates. And I've always taught it since when I started working at the university up till now. I still teach it.
But apart from undergraduate students, do you also teach or supervise graduate students, that is those who are doing second degrees or PhD? Yes,
that's what I spoke about right now, the United Nations course. That is for PG students, postgraduate students. So that's for LLM or PhD students, yes.
Have you supervised, completed any PhD supervision?
Yes, I have.
A number? Quite a number?
Yes, I have done so with some PhD and some masters. I don't have a ball figure right now in mind, but yes, I've done so. And the supervision is not just to do with the number that you have graduated, but also we do internal examination as well. And so sometimes you also look at that, the PhD and the LLMs of other lecturers, So for example, when I finish supervising my student and they've done the necessary defenses, internal ones, then they have which we call seminars. Then we have an internal defense, and that is given to someone within the system to look at, so that that person can criticize what you've done, look at it properly, and see if there are any mistakes, or just from a different view. Because if you look at something all the time, you may not notice something that someone else will just look at it and see.
Something obvious.
Yes, exactly.
Because it's eyes will see.
Exactly, because it's something that I've been looking at all the time. So we do that, and then when you're done, then it goes for external defense.
And have you been involved in external supervision? Because I know that after, especially at the level of postgraduate, there are also external supervisors. So do you supervise people from other universities, especially in the two areas you specialize, company law and international law?
Yes, I think what you're talking about is external defense. So going there to examine someone as an external examiner. Yes.
Which is more exciting, the internal one, which is more detailed, or the superficial one when you do it for external students?
Oh, that is not superficial because you don't, the external one is the more detailed one actually, well, they're all very detailed, but as the external one, it's what the external examiner says that determines the grade you get, that determines whether you actually passed or failed. So there is none that is, less. In fact, the external one is what most people get very worried about, because if your external examiner says you haven't done well, then you have to redo it.
Are you tough on your students? Because, you know, there is this praise of let my people go. We hear it often that students who don't measure up are still allowed to graduate, even when sometimes the lecturers aren't too satisfied because of possibly the corruption within the system.
Not in the Faculty of Law, University of Abuja, no. But you know, even when I started there, people will say, when number two riachi. So they don't say.
That is, you are a stickler for the rules.
Yes. So they don't approach. But you see, in the Faculty of Law, we don't take that really. It's a very sound faculty, very serious faculty. So we don't do that. But even if a decision is going to be taken regarding a particular set or group of people, it's done at the faculty level completely with everyone's say so. We have rules and regulations that guide that. So we don't do that. And
you are a deputy dean in the faculty, am I correct?
I was.
Or you were before you became deputy vice chancellor?
Yes, that's right.
And what's the difference in the two jobs? I imagine the deputy vice chancellor academic oversees maybe everything university-wide, while the one of the dean is slightly smaller area. So as a deputy, you deputize, which means, you know, whatever your superior tells you to do. Exactly. That's it. So whatever your superior tells you to do, that's what you do. So I was the deputy dean of law under two different deans, and that's what I did. Whenever you're needed or what you have to do, what they tell you to do, that's what you do. And then as the DVC now, it's the same thing really. However, you have some statutory committees which you chair. For example, the Central Committee on Exam Malpractice, the Staff Development Committee, the Committee of Provosts and Directors. So those are statutory committees which the DVC academic chairs. But whatever the VC needs you to do, you do that as a spare tire, as you know, his deputy. So it's whatever he wants you to do that you do. As chair of the committee about ethics, that's what you just mentioned,
exam
malpractices. How big a problem it is from your own finding, from your own experience, especially in the university where you are?
Exam malpractice is a serious issue in all universities, and the University of Abuja takes it very seriously. And, you know, students, for some reason, for one reason or the other, you know, they're always willing to break the law, you know, and cheat. They think they won't get caught. But even if you're not caught the first time around, the second time or the third time, one day you will be caught. And it's especially sad when they're caught at their final level. Because if you're caught and it's been proven and you're found guilty, then it's expulsion. So it's a really sad situation because it means that all those years that you spent at school become wasted.
We will be exploring what you've just said in greater detail when we resume from a short break. Viewers, it is 30 minutes, the interactive program of Trust Television, and our guest today is Professor Aisha Sani Maikudi, the Deputy Vice Chancellor Academic at the Abuja University. Welcome back. It is still 30 minutes, the interactive program of Trust Television, and our guest today is Professor Aisha Sani Maikudi, the Deputy Vice Chancellor, University of Abuja. Professor, before we went on break, you are highlighting the consequences of exam malpractices for students, in some leading to, expulsion, and it could even affect final year students. Have you had any recent cases?
Yes, we have. So at the end of every semester, exams are taken, and the exam malpractice forms are filled for those, they have to fill them, and we get a collation of that. Those are collated by the faculty, because each faculty has many different departments in it. So those are collated by the faculty, and then they're now sent to the committee which I chair. It's a committee of Senate. So it's sent to that committee, and we go through it again as well, and we call the people, to hear their own side.
And you've recently expelled quite a number.
So what happens is the committee looks at, it's done at the departmental level, then the faculty level, then the Senate committee level, and then from there we now present our findings to Senate. So when we have Senate, we present the findings, and then Senate approves or disapproves of it. So
quite an exhaustive process to ensure that maybe you are fair to all the sides involved.
Exactly.
From your findings, how widespread is it? I know it's not just the University of Abuja. There are all sorts of things happening in different universities. Recently, there was even a case of a lecturer who was caught to have been writing, exam for his wife in one of the universities.
So it's like I said, it's human nature. You always want to help out. You think you want to help out someone that you love, or maybe either because of love or because of financial gain or other reasons, and they don't want to fail. So they feel that if they fail, and that's the problem. People don't realize that even when you fail, some disappointments are blessings in disguise, and just because you have failed doesn't mean that you won't make it in life, and it really doesn't mean anything, because even if you fail, you get up and you try again. It's the same, but people aren't willing to do that. They just want, to go along with their mates and finish at the same time. So it is a problem, and we have realized it's a problem, and that's why we take very stringent steps, to ensure that everything is done fairly and there's no cause for concern or alarm. We do still have some cases, but when you look at the number of students we have at the university, it's a very minute percentage.
What about sexual harassment? Often it's the issue of females being harassed. Have you in any case been harassed, maybe by your students, by fellow lecturers or anyone within the system?
No, I haven't been.
And have you been involved in investigating any of such cases?
No, I have not. But they do exist.
Has there been a recent case in the university where you are?
There are some cases, and the university is looking into those, and the Vice Chancellor does not tolerate that. In fact, we have the Center for Gender Studies, and the director of that center is chairing the committee on dress code and sexual harassment. So we don't tolerate it. Sometimes we have sting operations, and the university management is involved in those sting operations.
And you are not keeping a lid on things, as we saw recently in the case of University of Calabar also, where the dean of the faculty there has to be a demonstration by female students before the authorities could act.
Well, I cannot comment on the Calabar case, because I don't know what is going on there, but I can tell you that in my university we take it very, very seriously. In fact, we've had a situation whereby the Vice Chancellor made sure a staff was prosecuted, or we have sting operations, and we all involve our CSO, our Chief Security Officer. We have sting operations whereby if someone comes and complains, then we'll say, okay, go along with it, we'll record it and do other stuff, and then we have had evidence for that. So we do not tolerate it at the university.
What about the issue of, one of the areas that you indicated interest, international law? I think you wrote some article or a whole paper around the issue of the Security Council, probably hinting at the unfairness of it all. If you are in a position to change things, what will you change? Is it expansion of the council or abolition of the council so that everybody is equal in that body?
No, not abolition. If you abolish the Security Council, the UN, United Nations would cease to exist. And I wouldn't call for an expansion, because even though when you call for expansion, then you're still perpetuating the same problem. So
then why return it when it is a problem?
No, you're complaining that it's a problem. So I'm saying even when you expand it, it will still be a problem. Why? Because you haven't expanded it to everyone. Not everyone is there, unlike the General Assembly. So what I would recommend is it should be something similar to the American system, whereby Congress can overrule the president. So therefore, if the Security Council passes a resolution or, wants to do something that the General Assembly is not okay with, or the world is not okay with, then I feel that when they veto a resolution, it should be put to a vote, and a 3/4 vote should be, or 2/3 or 3/4 should be able to overrule that.
And your interest in working in the UN is still there. So is all your current academic engagement in preparation for that?
No.
Why? You've lost interest in international organizations?
No, it's not that I've lost interest in it. It's just that, you see, like I said earlier, teaching wasn't something I thought I would do. But now that I've been teaching, I really don't think there's anything better than that. Everywhere I go, and it's not an exaggeration, I usually meet 1 or 2 of my students, and it gives me great joy to see what they've become. You make an impact on people's lives, and sometimes you can see it. Or
so you like it when they walk up to you and say, well, you couldn't recognize them possibly, and they say,
because there are thousands of them, and they say, oh, you taught me company law, or sometimes I took them in United Nations law, and it's really nice to see them. They're everywhere. So you know that you made an impact on that person's life.
What about your dad? Does he support you continuing? Because you mentioned your mom, but you didn't mention your dad, whom I believe is also kind of academically related in terms of his work.
Yes. So my father, I grew up seeing books on, half of my dad's bed is filled up with books. And that's what gave me the interest to read. And every time he traveled, I always asked him to bring me books. So I was always reading books, even up till today. When you enter my dad's room, half of his bed is filled up with books. Yes, exactly. And he has a library. He has an office in the house with a library. And he has another one, his balcony is also a library, but his bed still has books on it.
So it is all these experiences that have helped to make you who you are.
Yes, exactly. And at the age of 10, when I wanted to go to Queen's College, he didn't say no. Here was someone from Katsina going to Lagos. He encouraged it. And when I finished and he took me to the UK, that was a long time ago. Many people were against it, and they spoke to him about it. They say, how can you take her? She's too young. Yes. How can you take her to the UK? But he did. And I asked him why. I think, was it last year or this year? And he said to me that he knew what he wanted, and so he didn't listen to anyone.
You seem to probably know what you wanted, at least since you found your joy in teaching. And probably on that note, we could wrap up this session with you.
Thank you so much.
Viewers, that is the end of this edition of 30 Minutes. Keep a date with us.